I thought it was worth looking at the Dogecoin chart as a way to sort of end off this video. So, as I said, this is the information that I've managed to find for the best information that I can find to create the Dogecoin chart, which is set for the 6th of December 2013 at 9 a.m. in Portland, Oregon. So I thought it might be interesting just to sort of have a look at this to see if it can tell us what the prospects for Dogecoin are in the future, and if it has the potential to become the sort of the everyday digital currency that people use instead of fiat money to pay for transactions. So first of all, interesting that we have Capricorn rising and Cancer on the descendant, which I think is potentially is mirrored in Elon's chart, and is the main reason why it's good. It's a good confirmation for me that he does possibly have Capricorn rising. So what's interesting about this chart is, first of all, the moon rules the descendant, which is in Cancer, and it's located in the first house, so it's very prominent. So this is a currency of the people, the sort of the underdog. It is literally the underdog coin. So it's in the first house in Aquarius, which again is about the populace. This is something I brought out in my blog that I did about the Joe Biden's inauguration, and about the tension between Leo, which is representative of the king or the leader on the one hand, and then Aquarius, which is the ruler of the people on the other, kind of groups versus individuals. So the fact that the moon is in Aquarius, the sign of the group, and opposite to, and therefore opposite to Bitcoin, actually, because the Bitcoin ascendant is 7 degrees of Leo, so this is exactly opposite that chart. This moon would sit on the descendant of the Bitcoin chart. So I find that very interesting. So in a way, it is almost the sort of the counterpart to Bitcoin. So Bitcoin is like the king, and it is often referred to as the king. I tend to think of it more as a queen myself, but I might be a little bit biased because I do have a lot of kind of synastry with the Bitcoin chart. So the moon is conjunct that descendant, and it is in Aquarius. So it is almost like kind of foil to the sort of potential elitism of Bitcoin, because let's face it, if the price of Bitcoin does continue to go up, and if financial institutions and wealthy individuals manage to snap up most of the Bitcoin kind of pie, then Bitcoin does have the potential to become a bit like gold in a sense, or any fiat currency where there's huge inequality between people who can afford it on one hand and people who can't, and the people that then wield power and the people that don't. So yes, there certainly is that potential. And then we also have Jupiter in Cancer in the 7th house, which is where Jupiter is exalted, actually, which in and of itself seems very good. The sort of great benefic, pointing out that this is sort of wealth for all, kind of just sort of a more even distribution of the coins to everybody who can use it to buy things. But then we consider that Black Moon Lilith is right next to Jupiter, and then the picture darkens a little bit. And then we also have to consider here that Jupiter is opposite Venus in Capricorn in the first house, and Venus in Capricorn is quite acquisitive. This is the sort of the social climber, or somebody who marries for money, somebody who's quite sort of pragmatic. And it's interesting, if you look at the history of Dogecoin, that it did start out as this kind of fun coin that was used to raise money for charity, and then very soon afterwards got taken over by scammers. So unfortunately, I think this Dogecoin in that sense is possibly a little bit tainted, unless that can be eliminated from, that sort of dodgy element can be eliminated from the coin, and that may be why there is a trine to Saturn in Scorpio in the 10th house. So it could be that if, say, stricter regulations come in, or new protocols sort of come in, that could be ruled out. But I don't really think so. It's like any kind of currency. It's anonymous. It can be used by anyone. So you can't really police what people do with their money. They can either buy stolen goods, use them for sort of nefarious purposes, or they can use them for positive purposes. So yeah, I don't really kind of know whether we need to put moral overlays onto currency per se. So what else is interesting about this chart is that Chiron and Neptune are in the second house, which is the house of value, of values, and of kind of use, your utilitarian purpose. It's also the kind of house of things. So I think here there's a, this really points to me to the vulnerability in Dogecoin, which is that scammers can kind of use it. And people often talk about Bitcoin and how it's used for nefarious purposes, but any cryptocurrency can be used for that purpose. It's not just Bitcoin, it's the anonymity aspect. But then you could say that about cash too. If you don't sort of use a credit card, you don't use the banking system, which obviously can trace everything, transactions and that kind of thing. You could argue that you can do the same thing with normal money, and actually blockchain is much more transparent than cash, kind of hard cash, because all transactions are recorded onto the blockchain permanently. You can't get rid of them. So there's always a kind of trail, a paper trail, if you like, a digital trail of, who bought and sold what, for what price, where it went, which wallet. There's just no names attached to it, but we might get to the point where you can identify particular wallets and things, in which case, will be more traceable. But I just think that this Neptune here also points to the fact that Dogecoin doesn't have a market cap. There's no limit to how many Dogecoins can be minted in inverted commas. So it's a currency that potentially could also lose its value, much like the dollar, with the constant printing of money that's going on at the moment. That eventually it has this deflationary effect on the value of the currency itself. So other things might get cost more, but ultimately the currency itself is worth less. So I kind of think that and there also might be security issues too with Dogecoin. Neptune is very porous, so it's possible that there are loopholes there that can be exploited by hackers. So I think that's something that needs to be looked into. And then Uranus here, which is ruler of that second house, is retrograde in the third house and square to Venus. So Uranus in that third house, again, this could talk about maybe the fact that Dogecoin has got a bit of a bad rap, since it's just not considered people don't take it very seriously in the crypto space. To me, at the moment, if any currency is going to potentially be the most viable for a replacement to the dollar, it's going to be something like Ethereum. I think that's the reason why a lot of people have created stable coins that run off the Ethereum network, and I think it's why we are seeing a lot of people moving from Bitcoin into Ethereum, because they see long-term potential here with it being pinned to the value of the dollar. And essentially stable coins are pinned to physical assets. So if you are going to say hold 100 Ethereum, not 100 Ethereum, 100 US dollar coins, each of those US dollar coins in the crypto space is backed up by physical dollars in the bank at whatever the organization is that's selling you that coin. So there is a link between the sort of digital and the physical world. So whereas perhaps with Dogecoin there isn't really that, and for a lot of the altcoins, which is why they will probably disappear once the sort of speculative aspect of the bull market phase disappears. So yes, it's a Dogecoin that's not truly valued, and that's what is required to replace the current monetary system. People have to trust the currency. They have to believe that inherently it's going to maintain its value, and that it's not going to just sort of evaporate one day and be worthless. So you have to get people to buy into, to have faith in order for there to be kind of mass adoption. And then the final thing is Mars in that 9th house, which is interesting, So it's square the ascendant. So there are ideological issues here that people may not have faith in the currency long term. And so, it's interesting here that Mars rules Aries, which is intercepted in this particular chart. It doesn't actually rule a cusp. So that means it's sort of weakened. And Uranus actually is in Aries. So this is 2013 when Uranus was still in Aries and retrograde. So Uranus is a little bit weak there, and also a little bit volatile. If you think about all the things that happened during Uranus in Aries, we had the Arab Spring, we had those riots in London, which were a lot of young people kind of looting and pillaging. There was a lot of anger kind of expressed through that Uranus in Aries energy. So I do think that going forward, what it has done is it's antagonized parts of the crypto community that would also need to endorse and espouse Dogecoin as the sort of counterpart to Bitcoin. So I think that, yeah, not got off to a great start. It's almost alienated some of the people that were already the DeFi space's biggest fans, created a bit of polarization when it didn't really need to happen. So yeah, interesting stuff. We'll have to see what happens. Yeah, maybe we will revisit this in the future when Elon has sort of done his fixes and we can sort of say more.